Good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you for being here. There were a lot of options today. There's a Super Bowl, there's the Olympics, and they will all be there once we're done with what we're doing. I have a question for you. When you get sick or don't feel good or have some kind of disease that you can't find a solution for at the drugstore, what do you do? Who do you go to? The doctor, right? Now, when you go to the doctor, do you expect the doctor to listen to you? Right? Because do they know what's wrong with you if you don't tell them? So the doctor, their job, if they're doing it well, is to listen to you, to listen how you're feeling, and then do they say that? Do they just say, "Okay, fine, thanks for telling me"? No. What do we expect them to do? To diagnose us and do something about us, right? To help us feel better. So the reason why I'm talking about doctors is because in Jesus' time, that's not what doctors did. A doctor's job wasn't necessarily to listen to the person and how they were feeling and then try to help them feel better. Does that seem weird? To us, that seems very weird. But in those times, a physician's job was to figure out what a person had done wrong, that this thing would happen to them. That's weird. That is really weird. It's like my doctor, I go to him and I say, "I don't feel good," and the doctor says, "Well, Lori, the reason you don't feel good is because you haven't been living a good life. This is your own fault. See you later. The bill's in the mail." Right? So physicians of that time, they didn't really look at people and listen to people and help them. Their job was to tell everyone else what the person had done wrong and why this had happened to them. So when people needed someone to listen to them and help do something for them to relieve the pain they might be in, they wouldn't necessarily go to a physician or a doctor. They would go to someone who was known as a folk healer, someone who didn't have a medical degree, had not gone to school for 8 years, but someone that they knew they could count on to listen to them and do something about the way they were feeling. And Jesus was more of that kind of person. One of the things he did was listen to people and help them feel better. And so in that sense, he was considered a folk healer, which we don't hear about that often, but that was what he was doing when he went from place to place, and people kept coming to him saying, "Help me. I need help. I'm in pain." And Jesus responded to them instead of pushing them aside. So in those times when a person was suffering, they were suffering personally, but then they were also suffering because the people around them were actually judging them for not feeling well. They were actually, when you didn't feel well, other people were saying, "Well, you must have done something wrong to feel that way." And you know what they would do? They would do this. They would step away from you, right? They didn't want to be around you because if you had done something wrong that had made you sick or not feel well, they didn't want it to be something that they caught, right? And so they would step away from you. Sometimes people were asked to leave their communities, to actually separate themselves from their communities because people just did not want to be around them. Now, if I'm sick and I've got the flu, I think it would make me feel pretty lousy if not only no one listened to me or helped me, but they actually left me, right? That's not a very good feeling. And that is not what Jesus did, which was one of the reasons people were really attracted to him. They knew that they could come to him and that he would be there for them. And the stories we hear today in today's gospel are true stories about Jesus acting in that way. The first story we hear about is about a father who comes to Jesus because his young daughter has died. And there is nothing worse for a parent than when a child dies. This father is desperate, just like our parents would be, desperate to do something for his daughter. And he thinks that Jesus is the only person that can help him do it. So he comes to Jesus and he says, my daughter has died, but I know that if you touch her, she will come back to life. Now this father was taking a big risk too, because as weird as it sounds, him even talking to Jesus and asking Jesus to do this is kind of risky. Because if Jesus fails, this man is going to be made fun of. He's going to be ridiculed. People may look down on him. But he doesn't care, right? This is his daughter, his child. So what do you think Jesus does when he hears this man's request? Does he say, no, thank you? I'm busy. I'm preaching to the masses. I've got lots of people paying attention to me. Talk to my secretary. I'll put it on the calendar. Right? That's not what he does. He immediately starts following the man back to his house to see the man's daughter. And as he's walking along, there's a crowd that's following him. And some of them are following him because they've seen him do incredible things. And they know that there's something special about Jesus. Some of them are following him because they want to criticize him. And they want to see him fail. So that they can say, ha, you're not legit. You're not really what you say you are. So there's all kinds of people in the crowd that are following him. And one of them was a woman who had been really sick with a really horrible condition for 12 years. That is a long time to be feeling horrible. She was a woman who had money, she had means, and she spent all her money on the doctors. But did the doctors help her? No, they did not help her, because that was not their job. So she'd spent all of her money, and she had no more. The doctors had not helped her, but she had heard about Jesus. And so she decided that he might be someone who could help her too. So she's following along in the crowd. She doesn't quite know how to approach Jesus. Have you ever had that feeling where you want to approach someone and you just don't know how to do it? They're not someone you know, but they're someone who lots of people know, but you just don't know how to talk to them. So she decided she didn't even need to talk to Jesus to be healed. She decided that if she just touched his robe, not even touching him, just touched his robe, that would do it. And so that's what she does. She touches his robe. And you know what happens? Jesus notices. He feels the woman touching his robe. He turns around and looks at her, and what do you think he does? Does he say, back off? Don't touch me? No. He says, because you believed that I could heal you, that's all you needed. You're healed. From this day forward, you are healthy. And after 12 years of being so sick, she was made well. So Jesus continues with the crowd. He's going to the man's house. He walks in. Everyone's waiting. What's going to happen? Is he going to do something? Is he not going to do something? The disciples are thinking, what has he gotten us into? This crowd could turn ugly. The father of the daughter might be thinking, why did I invite him here? This may not have been a good idea. We don't really know what people are thinking. But Jesus goes into the house. He sees the young girl, and you know what he sees? He sees a precious child, one of God's many beloveds. And he says to the crowd, she's not dead. She's sleeping peacefully. And the crowd laughs. I mean, who is this idiot? Doesn't he see what's right in front of him? It's obvious to everyone. What's his problem? But Jesus tells the crowd to wait outside, and then he touches the girl. And you know what happens? She wakes up. She's alive, not dead. alive. Jesus saw her, he touched her, and things changed. That was the thing about Jesus. There was something about him that when people were around him, things changed. And they changed in a good way. People who were not well were made well. People learned how to live in God's loving way through what Jesus taught them. And that's important to us because we are part of that too. Jesus asked us to notice the people around us, to listen to the people around us, to do what we can on their behalf, to love them, to see them as precious, to acknowledge that everyone is God's most beloved. Now I imagine that you know some people in your lives that you would consider healers too. Some of them may be people who have lots of professional training, but that's not necessary. Anyone can be a healer. I imagine some of you have actually done things that are healing for other people. So as I was reading this gospel story today and thinking about healers, I started thinking about the people that I know in my life that I consider healers. And there are 5 youth in this congregation that I look up to because I see them as healers. And they are the 5 members of our confirmation class this year. These kids are smart and funny and very aware of the complex world around them. And one of their tasks in the confirmation program is to do a group service project of their choosing. And this exercise teaches them to identify some type of social issue that's important to them, to figure out how they can address it, and then ask for support and the resources they need to do their project. So what I want to share with you this morning is that for their project this year, the confirmation class has picked out an issue that matters greatly to them. The issue is school violence. They've all witnessed violence in their schools and want to find a way to heal the effects of it and prevent it from happening. They're working together to figure out what they can do to make their schools safer spaces for students and teachers. In a couple of weeks, we've invited a guest speaker to come to us and speak. And she's someone who works for a nonprofit group called Teens on Target. And Teens on Target trains kids to go into their schools and mentor their peers to help reduce school violence. So we're really anxious to hear from her. Her name is Mary Ann, and she is really anxious to meet our kids because she thinks it is an extraordinarily great thing that they care about this and that they're trying to find a way to do something about it. Once the group has decided on what they specifically think they can do to address this issue, the next step is that they're going to reach out to us for support. We'll be invited to listen to what the confirmation class needs from us and to respond as their allies. This is our opportunity to stand in solidarity with their desire to address violence in their schools. As their faith community, we'll be asked to support the healing work that they're going to be doing. They are going to be an inspiration to us because they know what matters and they know that there is something that they need to do about it. They also know that they cannot do it alone. Because doing things alone is really, really hard for anyone. But doing things in community is very And what better way for us as a community to engage than to help these kids with something that means so much to them. Acting as a healer is central to Jesus' ministry, and it's also central to us as Christians. Being healers is something we can all do wherever we are, just like our confirmation youth are doing. And if we need inspiration, today's gospel is one of the places we can go to find suggestions for how we can engage in healing work ourselves. We are invited to have faith that healing of all kinds is possible. We're invited to be brave, even if we feel hesitant or afraid. We're invited to see others through the eyes of compassion. We're invited to recognize and acknowledge the pain of others. We're invited to meet people where they are and act on their behalf. And we're invited to be bold in addressing the suffering around us and doing something about